Just to be clear, you, her, and me.
Yes.
Me too.
Yes, also you.
Greetings and salutations, guys. I'm here with my review of The Invite, a new comedy directed by Olivia Wilde and starring Wilde alongside Seth Rogen, Edward Norton, and Penelope Cruz. In this movie, Wilde and Rogen play a married couple living in an apartment building in San Francisco, and one night she invites over their neighbors, played by Norton and Cruz, for what turns into a very sort of tense, almost standoff situation with four characters that are sort of needling each other, trying to figure each other out. And yes, the neighbors come over with something in mind and an adult thought in mind, as the trailers are, very much leaning into. This is Wilde's third movie as a director, and it's an interesting situation because, she debuted with Booksmart, a very well done teen comedy. But then her follow-up, Don't Worry, Darling, it was a sophomore slump. And I do want to say, I didn't think that movie worked, and yet I also thought it got sort of unfair negativity around it, which is to say, even before it opened, it felt like the knives were out, and there was so much tabloid coverage, about Wilde and her relationships and what was going on the set of that movie and who was fighting and who was hooking up. And it just felt like it wasn't really a fair situation for the movie to even open in because it had to deal with so much around it. But I'm really happy that she continued to direct because she already had shown so much promise, and this movie is so well done. This is just a really good comedy for the most part. It is written by Rashida Jones and Will McCormick. Yes, that Rashida Jones. And working with Wilde, they've really created something fun here as far as just this showdown between these characters. And you've got Olivia Wilde and Seth Rogen playing a married couple who they've got a lot of problems. They've been sitting on a lot of resentment. We meet them at the beginning and they are squabbling. There's little, pettiness going on between them. And this is the night it's all going to be tested because this other couple's going to come over and they are going to push them and prod them and ask questions and, bring these things to to the surface that maybe they haven't been dealing with. It's sort of a classic scenario, but it's very well done here. You really like these characters. You're interested in these characters. I shouldn't say like because maybe you will dislike them, some of them and how they act, but you're intrigued by them. And it is very interesting to watch them bounce off each other. Of course, it helps to have such a strong cast, but also actors who I think are really just really firing on all cylinders. And that starts with Wilde herself. This is one of her best performances. And it's really interesting because it is this heightened comedy and it's, a lot of cutting dialogue. And most of these actors, except for Seth Rogen, aren't really known for comedies. Not to say they haven't done comedy, but you just don't think of them as comedic actors first and foremost. But they're all delivering here. But I think Wilde is leading the pack because she's showing everything about this woman and just how sort of tightly wound she is, but also what she's been sitting on and what her issues are and, what she's really feeling with her husband and sort of dreams that have been squandered along the way. There's some really great line delivery from her throughout this film. And I really think she and Seth Rogen play wonderfully off each other. Seth Rogen has had an amazing career, obviously, as a producer, a writer, director, and an actor, both in his own projects and other people's projects. But he really gets to cut loose here with sort of a classic Seth Rogen performance. And he kills it as far as playing this guy who, yeah, some of the tropes of Seth Rogen are there. Guess what? His character likes to smoke some pot. But I also think that because he's playing this sort of long married guy, and we learn about his history and what he once wanted to be versus what he's turned into, it's still a different sort of character as far as where he is in life and, what he is sort of feeling about where he ended up. And I think he plays it really well, but also I think, again, him and Wilde are just very good together. And it's very funny watching them, and it would make for both a great sitcom dynamic or, considering that this all takes place for the most part, except for the very beginning, inside this one apartment. Yes, you could see the stage version of this show in your mind. And if this movie is successful, I imagine there's a good chance this turns into a stage musical because it'd be pretty easy to pull off. And all you need is four great actors here. Edward Norton and Penelope Cruz, though, are also really delivering. And Edward Norton, he just does so well playing a guy who Seth Rogen is really pissed off by Edward Norton's character. There's a lot that bugs him about how Norton acts. And his character, Norton, he seems to feed off that. He's so amused by it.
We were fighting.
We were fighting, yeah.
Bit of a contentious environment in here, so I understand if that's repellent to you. No hard feelings, you know what I mean? Completely understand, you know?
We love a contentious environment.
And there is something very smarmy and full of himself about this character and about how Norton plays him that's also very funny here. And then Penelope Cruz, maybe my biggest surprise here, just because, well, I haven't seen her in a lot lately anyway. And the one thing I saw her in this year, The Bride, no fault of her own. She played a character who could have been interesting, but like a lot of that movie, it just didn't add up to much by the end. But it feels like she is really enjoying getting to play this role, which is sexy and alluring, but also a woman who is kind of aware of how people perceive her and likes to maybe push some buttons, but also have some fun with that, and seems both very open-minded, but also has her own cynicism. And there's some interesting moments where she gets to play different sides of that character as well. The idea of the mundane night at home that will turn into, the unearthing of secrets is a classic one. Many plays, movies, TV episodes have dealt with it, but I think it is just done very well here. Parts of this movie reminded me of The Ref, which is a particular favorite of mine from the 90s. I feel like that movie's kind of underrated, which has a high concept setup as far as a criminal ends up at this family's house in the middle of Christmas, but then it turns into something like The Invite as far as these characters that are just going to get real with each other, but some of it's going to be really biting, and then some of it's going to be kind of pathetic, but all in a very funny way. The only place I feel like The Invite falters a bit is near the end. Part of that is because Penelope Cruz and Edward Norton's characters, we start to get a little bit of a turn with them. We see a different side of them and how they relate to each other that I don't feel gets quite the payoff. It feels like we're going to somewhere bigger with what begins to happen between them, and then it just kind of fizzles out a little bit. And then is the very end of the movie gets very emotional and real. That's not my criticism. I actually feel like the movie's very much aiming towards that because it is a movie that is very sort of raw and real, even as it's being funny. And so it makes sense that at a certain point the jokes will simmer down, and we're going to have some characters here who are just going to talk to each other and have some very real emotional moments. I just wish the movie also still could be funny too, or at least go back into that by the end. This is just a personal thing, and it didn't ruin the movie for me at all. It's just a little bit where it's like, oh, I wish they'd kind of remembered to still be funny at the very end as well as get, real and really dig in with these characters because that is all worth it. And I think it's very well earned it. But it's also been so damn funny the whole way that I wish they could have sort of closed that circle a little bit more. But by and large, I thought this was a really good time in an era where it's hard to get comedies at all, but especially comedies like this that are not high concept, that don't have any sci-fi element or superhero element or something else to be like, it's a blank comedy, it's a horror comedy, it's whatever. This is just character-based comedy, and the selling point is these actors and what they are going to say to each other in these situations. And I think it's really successful on that front. And it made me want to see more movies like this. And the fact that it's in theaters makes me really happy because it's, movies like this deserve to be seen in a theater because it doesn't always have to be spectacle. A different kind of spectacle can be found from a comedy like this that is just about people that are on such edge with each other and where things might go and how they are escalating things and the tension escalating and who's going to cross a line and who might do something or say something that they can't take back. And I think they get a lot of mileage here out of this as a comedy. And it's a real success for Olivia Wilde, I think, both as a director and as an actor. It really shows that she has a lot of strength here, and she works so well with her cast here. And maybe a problem with Don't Worry, Darling was that it was too big too quickly. That movie did go into a much different realm as far as what it was about and what it was dealing with. But now that she's returning to something smaller scale, not to say she can't return to something larger scale too, but smaller scale here, this is really suiting her. And it's also really cool that she had a really funny, fun role on The Studio last year. So Seth Rogen gave her a really funny role, and now she in turn has given Seth Rogen a really funny role. And now that they've established that this is a really good dynamic the two of them have on screen, I'd be up for more. I really enjoyed The Invite. Ending didn't quite land as well for me, but I still thought a lot of that was interesting as well, but overall had a lot of big laughs. And there's some slapstick moments that I'm thinking about. There's some moments between Seth Rogen and Penelope Cruz that are just, there's a lot of really good laugh out loud moments in this film. The Invite is in theaters this weekend. It might be in like semi-limited release if it's not near you. Hopefully it will get to a theater near you, but it is worth seeking out. All right, guys, if you can like and subscribe, that is worth seeking as well. Thanks a lot.